What is up, everybody? Happy Tuesday evening, and welcome to Talking Ball, y'all. I am Cass Hargis. That's Jason Duhay and Lance Lacoste, and we have a action-packed week. We've got a jam-packed show. We were talking about it before we got on air. There's a lot of sneaky. I don't even want to call it sneaky good. There's a lot of good football games going on this week.
Yeah, we talked about how it's deep. It might not be those, like I said, those non-district matchups, man, but some really good district matchups coming up and some real opportunities for teams to show how good they are and where they are at this point in the year.
I think we're really getting to, down here in New Orleans, we're getting to the thick of the Catholic League now, really finding out what these teams are made of. And so I know we got a special guest to really talk about maybe the biggest matchup of the week. Sorry.
Or the night too, but yeah, there's district there's big time district games everywhere. We're at the point in the season now where you're right. We start to kind of find out who's, how much did the pre-district schedule tell us, and who can continue to get better throughout the season. And speaking of a team that's getting better throughout the season, the big matchup in the New Orleans area and the state, two undefeated teams, St. Aug and Carr. I don't think we can use too many words to describe exactly what that machine looks like. They're unbelievable. Best team in the state, I think, maybe by far. They still have to go out and play well. But St. Aug, I've been beating the Purple Knight drum all year long. St. Aug is a team that 7-5 last year in Coach Robert Valdez's first season. They won a playoff game against Karen Crow. They lost a tight one to St. Thomas More in the second round of the playoffs. They returned 15 guys from that team last year. They have been super impressive all year long, and now this is the biggest challenge that they have facing them this year. And we are honored, pleased, and happy to have joining us tonight Coach Robert Valdez, the head coach from St. Aug. He's a state champion coach from St. James, took West St. John to the Dome as well in 2011, spent 2 years as Gramblin's O-line coach, now the head man for the St. Aug Purple Knights. Welcome aboard, Coach. Thanks for joining us.
What's up, guys? How we doing, man?
We're doing good. This is awesome. We're doing great. Coach, I'll start it off here with this. I'll kind of kickstart this thing. Obviously, you have tremendous experience in both high school and college. Going into year 2 at St. Aug, this is a job and a school. There's tremendous pride in that community. The people that went there, like the St. Aug community, rallies behind everything Purple Knights, and it almost felt like they just needed the right guy to get in there and kind of give some consistency to it to kind of have that thing take off. But you seem to have at least started off on the right foot with that. Going back to your first year last year, how big was it for y'all to have some playoff experience? I know the regular season didn't go maybe the way you wanted it to, but to win a playoff game, you lose a game late to St. Thomas More on the road. How big was that for you guys last year coming into this year?
I really believe that it just started off setting the tone for the building blocks. I mean, you come into a program that has so much legacy, has so much lore, and has so much tradition. And, you're there for a reason because, the administration, the alumni, and all that wanted, new blood. They wanted resurgence. And so, we actually, it was a situation where because of a threat of a hurricane, we picked up a game with Cecilia. So we actually got a chance to get on a bus and go and travel and play the 4A state champions and get the kids on the road. We played so many games in what they call the Catholic League Coliseum that we look forward to put some gas on the bus and getting out of New Orleans sometimes. And then that was my first time ever going to St. Thomas More, and I tell you that's got to be one of the most electric type places to play in. And they do such a great job, and it takes you a little while. Almost, if we'd have had 5 more minutes, we probably would have been playing, in the third round. Yeah. But it's just, but it helped to be able to set the tone, for the second season. And these guys, they have done a great job of just handling the requirements, the work ethic, the things that we value and we're trying to put in place. And I'm proud of them. I'm proud of how resilient and they have been, and the work ethic and the coaches and everybody involved of us trying to put ourselves in position to compete.
So seems like, just from my perspective, it's a great time to be at Purple Night. I know I've had great conversations with Augustine, new president of your school. I guess he's not that new anymore, but president of your school, very sports-minded, former athlete. You got unbelievable facilities all of a sudden. It seems like stuff's really heading in the right direction. What's it like taking over one of the greatest, traditional schools of our city, and maybe at the perfect time?
It's crazy because of leaving college. I'm a New Orleans guy, and I haven't had a chance to coach in New Orleans because of things and the places I've been. And so when this opportunity came about, it was hard to not really look at it. And then there was talk about the things that were going to be done and put in place, but you get there like, oh, this is not it yet. So you kind of had to have faith, and you had to trust in what President Taylor, Mr. Cambrice, the principal, and Ryan Sims, the athletic director, the things that we talked about. And late November of last year, we were able to practice on a practice field, which is turf. We were able to get into the weight room. We were able to see the locker room and see these things, and and it's a very, very. I'm honored because it's our time, and I think that the work and the dedication of the alumni, all parties involved, of everybody who had anything to do with giving us the opportunity to have these type of facilities, and we're just trying to make sure that we make them proud, and that we utilize it, and we leave it better than we find it.
Yeah, done a great job so far.
Thank you.
So, Coach, coming into this game, there's going to be so much talked about your offense, and again, I know Lance wanted to ask specifically about them. So many athletes, but looking at your defense, I think your defense might get overlooked because of the fireworks. Because you have a guy like Miguel Whitley, you have Coulon at quarterback, you have Sean Sims, I could go on and on. But, you have a really talented defense giving up 18.5 points a game. Can you speak to the job that your defense has done so far this year, and maybe what they might need to be able to do against Carr this week against a very talented offense?
First of all, for the record, I want my defensive players and coaches to know that I do like them. They think I don't like them. they swear to God that Coach Valdez doesn't like them, But Coach, our guys. Ty Dominic is committed to ULL, and he's a guy that kind of sprung on a little late and whatnot. And we have guys that Gilmore made all district last year. Clinton Hill didn't finish the season. He had a leg injury, so he's back for this year. We have a young sophomore, Darren Coates, who plays opposite defensive end. I said it before, we make no excuses. We have about 14 seniors on this Division I roster. But I think that, we always challenge defensive guys to play with a level of physicality, and I'm tough on them. I'm really tough on them because they have to. Offense sells tickets, guys. They get everybody sitting in the stands, but ultimately defenses are the ones that have to make these stands, and we're gonna be tested. We're gonna be tested. We're gonna be tested by, like I said, I think Coach Bryce Brown's like a mad scientist. He finds loopholes. He finds gaps within your defense and whatnot. So we're going to be tested. We're going to be tested at the line. I think that I said before that I think, the line of scrimmage, the battle of the line of scrimmage, understanding how formidable they are defensively with their defensive line, but their offensive line takes a little back seat too. Then I think they're pretty good. Those guys are huge, athletic, and they transition a little bit more this year to being more physical in the run game, and they're doing that, which is totally contradictory to what Carr's been in the past. But so like I said, I think that our defense is going to have to just be stout, play bend but don't break. There's going to be some plays that are going to be given up, but we're just going to have to just continue to set the edge, continue to fight, and continue to try to get the ball back to the offense. So hopefully we can, have some scoring opportunities.
Yeah, speaking big picture going into the game this week, Coach, how have you handled or have you even thought about this is it's a big game because both of you are undefeated. Obviously, the opponent is who it is, but, it's a big game because y'all are in it too. But how have you thought about how you're going to handle the next week and the next week and the next week, and not put so much on this week, no matter what happens, because after that you got Jesuit, then you got Rummel, and you got Brother Martin, and it just doesn't stop. Like, it's not like it's car and the season's over. So have you thought about what that may look like moving forward?
You're going to think I'm crazy, guys, and I'm a little different as a head coach because I don't know, these guys are way too high strung. But, Saturday, the sun will shine, and I got tickets to the fried chicken festival.
That's right.
First time. So free plug for them. So, so first and foremost, before the Jesuit Blue Jays is Coach Valdez and Miss Valdez and our grandson are going to the fried chicken festival. So
that's way more important than any game. That's way more important than any game.
So that'll be my first time. So no matter what, like I said, that's what's happening Saturday. But in realistic, so to speak, we all always, want to be in these situations, and we want to put ourselves in this position. This is why this was such an attractive job, because you want to be able to play these type of games, and you want to have this type of excitement, and you want to be in this type of atmosphere, because like I said, there's a lot of things that come with it in terms of players and resources, expectations, all these things, but like I said, the sun will shine the next day, win or lose. It will shine the next day, and no matter what, the Jesuit Blue Jays are on deck the next week. And so, for us, it'll be our first Friday game in a long time, because we play so many Saturday games. So that's a little bit change of routine there. And so for us, it's just being able to have a good quality week of practice, getting all of our prep work done and getting everything underway. And then, getting these kids to go out there and put together a good quality product, because, like I said, we this district is unbelievable. There's no rest for the weary. Like I said, you face one level of the Hunger Games and you go to the next one. And so, like I said, and that's just how we approach it. Like I said, we're confident. We're confident. We've been working hard. We've put ourselves in positions. But I think that, most importantly, that New Orleans is going to be on center stage Friday. High school football in New Orleans is going to be on center stage Friday. You're going to see tremendously athletic athletes. You're going to see great coaching on both sides of the ball, and I think there's going to be in for a treat. And I think that the one thing that I look at it is that we may play them people again.
Yeah.
So it's like, do you shoot all your bullets? You got to go back. So it's just it's the nature of the beast. It's the nature of where we are. But no matter what, I think that I said this earlier. I said I think that we probably are giving New Orleans a little bit of a break away from all societal ills, because people are talking about this, and that's all they're talking about. This game Friday night. So that's exciting. That's fun. And, and so we'll take our young men, and Coach Brown will take it. Coach Bryce Brown will take his young men, and we'll put them on center stage. And then hopefully we can, for a couple of hours, forget about everything that's going on in life and just highlight these young men.
Yep. Coach, I want to talk about your offense. So last year, me and Jason had your game. We did the VSN broadcast for Holy Cross St. Aug. I came away from that game just extremely impressed by the execution of your offense, the way you ran personnel groupings on and off the field, the tempo, clearly the quarterback being in complete control of the offense. And so I was really impressed for not that you're a first year coach, but first, new coach at St. Aug, new quarterback, and just how it looked like such a well-oiled machine, and so just, your offensive philosophy, the importance of your quarterback you have right now, as well as maybe the growth you've seen since last year.
I was blessed for 2 years when I was at Grambling. I sat in that doggone war room, and our offensive graduate assistant was a Brother Martin grad, and his name is John Paul Pierce. And so when this opportunity came about, I said, "Hey man, you want to go home? You want to come home? Let's go back to New Orleans. I'm an Old Prairie Walker grad. We get a Brother Martin grad. We go into the Catholic League, and I think he's a very extremely talented young man. I think that moving forward in the future, he's a bright young star. And then I'm the old line type of guy, so I think it's good chemistry that we have, old offensive line minded guy and a very young, innovative, play caller, so like I said, and so that's been, we've had a really, really good marriage. I don't know how long I could hold on to him. You know what I'm saying? I think I'm gonna have to offer him, some red beans from Triangle.
Take him to the chicken fest. Take him to the chicken fest.
He's going now. He's the first one to get. He's going. He's going. I got 4 tickets. He's gonna get 2 of them. He's got to get the perks. But the kids really embrace the what we want to do. They embrace Vashon Coulon is a hardworking kid. He's there every day. He's there every day. He's open. He listens. He's receptive. He gives feedback. And most times kids don't give feedback. He asks, well, what about this? What do you think about this? And what about this scenario? And we have different conversations. And so I allow Coach Pierce to coach him. Like I said, and Coach Pierce that's a great job with a lot of the things that he brings to the table. Some things I table it. Some things I say, okay, let's go with it. But it's a collaborative effort, and they allow us to coach them there, and then they allow us to coach them hard too. So, and they're accountable young men. So therefore, that's exciting. When someone asks, "What's your offensive philosophy, guys?" I don't know. It's whatever scores. We don't bind ourselves to. We're not a spread team. We're not a power team. We're a find a guy team, and we've been finding a couple of these guys, and they've been making plays for us.
So, Coach, to your point, finding a guy kind of team. You've seen Miguel Whitley go up at certain points of the season. Raekwon Williams, Rashawn Sims, so many talented guys. And of course, your back, Keith Hill, a really talented guy. But you're going to go up, obviously, you're going to go up against your biggest test of the season this year. And when you turn on the film and you see Carr, what's the one thing that stands out to you on their offense and on their defense?
Well, I think that the quarterback, Josh Johnson, I think this guy's dynamic. I think this guy is, he throws the ball extremely well for such an athletic quarterback. We look at him immediately, you think, okay, dual threat, but he has very good passing mechanics. And then if you take that away, then he's just going to utilize his legs, and he's just as dynamic as a runner as he is as a passer. And he's a refuse to lose type of guy. And if you look at the games that they've played and when they've been really challenged and battle tested, he's pretty much came through. He came through for them against American Heritage and made the plays that need to be made to win the game. He is the undeniable leader offensively. They have the big running back, number 8, that's committed to Nichols. He's a load. So now you have to contain the quarterback, but you have to set the edge and be able to have your run fits, because if not, he can find the gaps in the seams. They're doing a little bit more gap scheme this year because they have a tight end. A tight end that's committed to Alabama State. So they're it's really crazy that they're running ISO out of spread. And so when you look at them, like, oh, that's ISO. It's old school ISO. It's just in a different package.
That's right.
So now you can't flex your linebackers out because you got to contend with when they go 11 personnel. But they're complete, and like I said, and what they do well is that they have built in, already numbers checks. And so if you're not, you got to give something up on defense. I'm not going into a game plan. No one covers 0. That's the only way that you're going to just put a hat on everyone. So they take the mismatches, they take the numbers, they take the advantages, and then you have to make an adjustment. When you make the adjustment, they have an answer for it. So that's a mark of a well-coached team. Defensively, let's stop. We don't have to sit up here and try to fool ourselves, man. Them dudes are grown men on that defensive line, man. They cause you not to sleep at night, So it's like, what do you want to focus on Big Rich? You know what I'm saying? If you focus on him, they got the defensive ends. They got the other kid that he feels like he should be getting some pub. And they probably have the fastest linebackers I've seen in my life. Those guys are not like linebacker types. They're like safety type bodies, but they're extremely fast. And they can do that because you have to commit so much to try to just get a surge or a stop on the defensive line. And then if you get past that level, then you get doggone SEC commits. So So, you get Texas, you get LSU. I mean, so we should be playing, Saturday at 11 o'clock on CBS.
Like you turn on the tape, you still think you're at Grambling preparing for an opponent in the SWAC.
I was at Grambling when Jaden Daniels won the Heisman Trophy. I think he won it on us. You know what I'm saying? So, I think that the only time the ball hit the ground that game was when the ball boy dropped it after they scored.
At least you were there to see it. That's
I saw it. I got a free ticket. I got a free ticket to see a Heisman Trophy.
To get in. That's right.
A free ticket to see a Heisman Trophy win in person. But and like I said, but that's here's the deal. It's exciting because we want to see if what we do works against the best. And I think that like I said, they are the best, undeniable right now what we have to date. But then again, once you get past them, this district is just ruthless. So the thing is, we the good thing is that we get that challenge first. We get it out the way. Let's hurry up and move on.
There you go. That's a good way. That's a good way of looking at it. Now, Coach, we really appreciate you hopping on, man. This was it's a whole lot of fun. And I think I'll speak for Jason and Lance. The city of New Orleans, the state of Louisiana, high school football is better when St. Aug is good and doing what y'all are doing right now, man. We're huge fans of y'all, and we're rooting for y'all. We know you got your hands full, but hey, Carr got their hands full too. They got their hands. They'll be ready. So we look forward to watching y'all on Friday night. Good luck, Coach. We appreciate it.
Hey guys, appreciate it, man.
Thank you.
Fun, man. All right.
See you.
Thank you.
That was awesome. What great perspective too. He's going to go to the Fried Chicken Fest on Saturday. We play the best team in the state Friday night, but it is that the city of New Orleans is going to be showcased with these two teams. What an atmosphere that's going to be. It's going to be awesome.
Yep.
It'll be electric.
Yeah.
I've been around so many stressed out coaches and coaching staffs, and this one of the best out there doing it. And that's, his personality is we're going to give it our best when I'm going to go to Fried Chicken Fest and then we'll prepare for Jesuit, and so it's really cool.
And the players take after that too. The players will follow his lead, and they're going to go let it rip on Friday night too.
And look, man, he's a guy who's been around some football communities. He was in St. James, West St. John. He was at Scotlandville for a bit. St. James is a football community, man. That's, so again, for him to kind of have that perspective, and then you go to Grambling, which of course it's a big deal there, and then you go to St. Aug. So he's been around the highest of the highs in terms of, culture around football. And again, to be that loose the week of the biggest game on your schedule it's really awesome. And again, really great getting to talk to him. Yeah,
no doubt. And that offense is fun to watch. St. Aug it's fun to watch. Friday night, we've said enough about Carr. That's going to be an absolute electric environment. A lot of purple and gold. A lot of purple and gold.
A lot of music, a lot of bands.
Yeah, yes, that's they do right.
Lance, you want to talk
the
about
football on the field is going to be great, but the
Lance, tell Cass about the band during our broadcast.
Yeah, we were doing a pregame, and I mean, he passes it to me. I'm start talking about what I'm looking for, and there's Carr's band lights starts going off, and it stunned me like I was like a deer in the headlights. All of a sudden, completely lost my train of thought, and just we were literally right above Carr. And so every time they played, I mean, it was like they were in our ears.
Meanwhile, I'm talking to the director. I'm like, "Can we turn down the crowd mic?" He's like, "It's not on."
It wasn't a crowd mic.
You could feel you can feel the vibration coming through the press box, man. It was something.
Yeah, that place is the game's at Berman. That is definitely a great atmosphere. Different atmosphere, but like he mentioned St. Thomas more. It's different going to Carr too, so that'll be a whole lot of fun. We'll stay in New Orleans to preview our next game, Jesuit and Holy Cross. This is the 106th meeting between these two teams. It is the 5th oldest continuously played rivalry in the country. Jesuit leads the all-time series 61-43. And there was one tie. Holy Cross has won 3 straight in that series. Lance and I, we got to play in this game. It's special. It's more. The football game's great, but everything that goes on around the football game. It's a really, really cool atmosphere. There's going to be, 10,000-12,000 people there. It's going to be a lot of fun. But Jesuit coming in, I don't know if their starting quarterback's going to be available. They may be on their backup. They may be on the third string. Coach Manali's done a great job, I think, just to get this team to this point of being 3-1. Holy Cross faced Carl last week. They got the honor of being the first Louisiana team to score on them. They scored 3 points. They lost 42-3. So how can they bounce back? And this is kind of feels like a pivot point game for both of these teams. Kind of create some momentum and win this game on Friday night. But it's a big one for sure.
Yeah, just to reiterate, it's absolutely the biggest tailgate party in high school football. It is unbelievable. They take the whole block. So great crowd. There's a parade. There's all kinds of stuff. But, so both teams are a little beat up already. You talked about the quarterbacks from Jesuit. Holy Cross is already dealing with, a couple injuries because they played Carr last week. And so, but, with that said, Jesuit did a great job of still scoring 29 points last week, even with quarterback issues. So, I think, for Jesuit, when you don't even know who's going to play quarterback for Jesuit, that makes it a little bit tougher at times to even prepare if you're Holy Cross too. So sometimes that could even work to that team's advantage, I would say. But I think for Holy Cross, it's about getting back to who they were 2 weeks ago and really finishing drives. We've seen them move the ball even against Carr early in the game. They really moved the ball versus Carr had a great plan and just struggled to finish drives. So I think it's really going to come down to this game's always close. Who's going to win a turnover battle? And then can Holy Cross finish drives, or are they going to settle for field goals?
And this is another test for this Holy Cross defense. Jair Burks is a really phenomenal athlete, one of the top track athletes in the country. I believe it's 110-meter hurdles. He ranks like top 10 in the country. Really fast player, returned a kickoff for a touchdown. So to Lance's point, we talked about special teams being a real key for Holy Cross. You're going to be tested special teams with Jair Burks. You also have Roman Luray at wide receiver, who's another dynamic playmaker. So regardless how deep they are at quarterback, they have weapons to throw to. And while this defense has, again, had a rough time against Carr, I think 99.999% of all teams in the entire country would have some type of trouble with Carr. So I think you kind of have to push past what happened and look forward. I'm interested to see how this offense kind of responds to a rough week. Kieran Smith going up against this defense, it's going to have to be a key role of this offense. Keep their offense on the field, and ball control is going to be key for Holy Cross. But for Jesuit, regardless of who's at quarterback, again, getting the ball to your playmakers on the perimeter, just finding a way, whether it's bubble screen, whether it's quick slant, whatever you do, just get the ball to the receiver and try to get into that secondary of Holy Cross.
Yeah, from Holy Cross, it's almost like you just throw away last week. Like you just see what they did for the first 3 weeks of the season. Aside from obviously being a little bit banged up, but like whatever happened last week, it's over, and then you move on. And then I think Coach Manali, whatever their quarterback situation is going into this week, they've already had a week to deal with it. So now you got 2 weeks of preparation. He's going to have his guys prepared, ready to go. And with all that said, no matter who's playing quarterback for either team, this is going to be a close game. It always is. It always seems like it's close, low scoring, a 4-quarter game. Probably expect a little bit more of the same, but definitely going to be a spectacle out at Tad Gormley Stadium on Friday night. Another big Catholic League matchup, Brother Martin and Rummel. They get together. Brother Martin averaging 42 points a game. Rummel defense has only given up 16.2 points a game this year. This is the classic offense versus defense. You've got Hudson Fields, quarterback for Brother Martin, throwing to maybe the best receiver in the country or one of the best receivers in the country, and Easton Royal. How can Coach Monica, Jacoby Dunn, and Mitchell Harris in this defense handle that, I think, is going to determine who wins this game.
Yep, I was going to say pretty much the same thing there. I think this is, this feels like one where Brother Martin's probably the favorite here, mainly because they're 4-0. This is also the best defense that Brother Martin has faced so far. Coach Monica and Rummel, they're going to have a plan for Easton Royal. And so I think that if Brother Martin wins this game, I would expect big games out of Rowan Lipscomb and Rex LeBlanc, two guys that are experienced players that made big plays last year. They have a lot more than just Easton Royal on that offense. And so that's where my brain is right now as I think about how this game could play out.
Yeah, and I think – we know we've talked over and over about how talented Easton Royal is. And, You're absolutely right. Some other guys are going to get some opportunities, and they've started to emerge throughout the season. On the flip side of the ball, and again, this is going to be a very boring day coming from me, it seems like, because I'm going to go back to that same well, but it just seems to be true. Rummel, to win this game, look to hold on to the football, ground the football, limit the way that offensive Brother Martin gets the football and what they do with it. Jaden Terrence has been a solid back for Rummel this year, and Corey and Hawkins got some playing time last year, I've mentioned before, and has really become one of the more important pieces of this offense this year. I think those two guys keeping the offense on the field and allowing Rummel to maintain possession and getting points when you can, taking advantage of red zone opportunities and not coming up empty is going to be key.
Yeah, I think if this game's played in the 20s, that's Rummel's chance. If Brother Martin can push it up into the 30s or higher, I think that's Brother Martin's path to victory. And, we say that and it could completely flip the script. And, Coach Bonise and those guys, they're going to have some schemes too, to whether it's get Easton Royal the ball, use Lipscomb. They're going to be ready to go too. But I think Rummel wants to keep it low scoring. Brother Martin wants to kind of pick up the pace and put some points on the board. The classical offense versus defense matchup, that's going to be fun to watch. Two really well-coached teams, two talented teams. That's going to be a good one down in New Orleans. Not far from New Orleans, we were talking about this game 5 weeks ago, and we said one team's going to be 4-0, one team's going to be 2-2. I think we'd have them flipped with Terrebonne and Destrehan. Terrebonne's coming into this game. They played at Destrehan. They're undefeated at 4-0. Destrehan is 2-2. Both teams have one win in district. Terrebonne beat Destrehan last year 30-21. That was only their second win against Destrehan since 2004. This Terrebonne team has been explosive. Their defense has been fast. They're physical. And this Destrehan team is one. They're battle-tested. Jackson Fields, again, maybe I don't want to call him underrated because I don't think he is now, but one of the best quarterbacks in the state. This has a chance to have some fireworks over in Destrehan.
Yeah, this one's low key like my favorite game of the week, because this Terrebonne team, I've heard about them since week one. I'm more impressed by them every week. They did beat Destrehan last year, but I'm pretty sure Jackson Fields was injured that game, and so Terrebonne beat up a Destrehan team without their probably best player. And so, for that reason, Destrehan is probably even more motivated to come out and beat this Terrebonne team, right? But at the same time, this Terrebonne team, they look really big, physical. Quincy Adams is a highlight reel of Friday Night Football every Friday right now. And so it's really hard to see where this one goes. I'm leaning towards the experience of Jackson Fields and Destrehan, but this feels like one that's going to be really interesting.
What's interesting is usually when you have a back like Quincy Adams, you tend to see, maybe a little bit lower scoring, but they average 45.25 points a game. Quincy Adams through 4 games has 902 yards with 13 touchdowns, and that's only running, guys. He has some more receiving the football as well. I mean, he's been incredible. Look, give credit. We don't get a chance to give credit to the big boys up front, man. Look, they have a really solid offensive line. Tadden Bigham, Chris Stewart, Orion Mosley. Again, 3 guys that are playing ball at the next level. Bigham at Louisiana Tech, Stewart at Southern, and Mosley at North Texas. They've really been the catalyst of this offense. And look, they can pass the football as well. Owen Oliver, over 600 yards passing the football. But on that flip side, right, we know that Destrehan has that firepower. Some great receivers as well. Jalen Ash, a guy who transferred in from Rummel. Malachi Dabney, who could be one of, if not the best junior running back in the state. So they've got some weapons, along with Jabari Mack, who's going to kind of get the headlines. But this is going to be a really fun game to watch. I would expect some offensive fireworks.
Yeah, no doubt. And it's, again, I think with Destrehan having a healthy Jackson Fields, that just may prove to be the difference, but I don't think we're going to count this Terrebonne team out at all either. Staying in that same area, we've got St. Charles going to St. James. St. Charles is undefeated at 4-0. St. James is 3-1. Landry LeBlanc, quarterback for St. Charles, has seemed to really start to find his groove. He's really comfortable. Skylar Edwards might be my favorite player on their team, though. Their running back is an athlete. He's fast. He runs physical for not being – he's not the biggest guy in the world, but he runs physical. And obviously that defense led by Brooks Monica, they're going to have their hands full with the St. James team that comes in averaging 40 points a game. But if we know anything about St. Charles, they're going to turn it into a defense and special teams game, and St. James may just have to try to find a way to win it like that.
Yeah, St. James 3-1, kind of an underwhelming 3-1 just from some of their schedule so far. St. Charles, kind of, I would say the opposite. St. Charles has been super impressive at 4-0. Not surprised at all. Again, I seen that team in the playoffs last year. It just felt like a young group of kids that was going to be really good the following year, and they've been every bit of it. So really like St. Charles in this one. They do go to St. James, so that's not an easy place to go win a football game. So that could also be an element there. But yeah, man, you said it. All those guys you just named, LeBlanc, Edwards, Monica, some great players that I just knew would have a great season this year. And so really like St. Charles here.
When you look at this matchup, you know that St. Charles wants to come in and run the football. Does this sound familiar, guys? That's why I told you it might be a boring night from my piece. You know that they want to come in and run the football. Skylar Edwards is going to be leading the charge, who broke off a few big runs last week. And the Comets put 21 points up in the first half and really were able to, rely on that ground game, rely on turnovers. This St. James team has some weapons offensively, and starting with quarterback Jawan Jackson, who could be one of the most underrated quarterbacks in the state. And what I'll say is this about the St. James team: they've kind of been dealing with some injuries. I know Jackson was hurt a few weeks ago. King Young, their running back, is reportedly been hurt the last few weeks. Cayman Mitchell at wide receiver's been hurt. But look, man, Jacques Villanueva is a phenomenal playmaker for the St. James team. That St. Charles has played against Dunham, who has athletes everywhere. I think this St. James team always seems to find a way to move the ball offensively. They're going to get tested. It was a low-scoring affair a year ago. It was a 15-11 game, which is not typically the game that St. James wants to play. But look, defensively for St. Charles, again, finding a way to not allow Jaquan Jackson to go crazy, limiting Villanueva's ability. And I think it's going to start with that secondary for St. Charles. A lot of the front seven and the linebackers get credit, man. But Preston Colm, one of their guy who's got a few offers, hasn't even been playing lately. He's going to be coming back later in the season. You got Anderson Briggs in that secondary as well, who's been all over the field. So I'm really interested to see this one because it's such a drastic contrast in style of these football teams.
Yes, it is. And, we peg St. Charles as defense and special teams, which they are. But they do have good athletes. They do have good athletes. So that'll be a fun matchup for sure this week. Down out in the Lafayette area, Riverside goes to Vermilion Catholic. Vermilion Catholic wins the state championship last year. They made it to the Dome, I think, twice in Coach Brock Prejean's first 4 years. They make it with a senior-laden team last year. They finally win it under Coach Prejean. They start this year off 1-3. They lost a lot from last year's team. Their quarterback, do-everything guy, Jonathan D'Artes, seemed like he played there for 15 years. He finally graduates last year. They had kind of a rough start to their season. They got their first win of the year last week. Riverside making a trip. They're 3-1. Y'all can give whatever kind of analyst y'all want on this game, but Riverside they're my favorite because they have a boogie. They got Boogie Johnson, who's a 3-year starter as a sophomore, a super athlete, an electrifying athlete with the football in his hands. Vermilion Catholic trying to find their footing with some new guys. Riverside more seasoned, maybe a little more veteran team, maybe a little more prepared for this game.
Yeah, anytime you get a chance to go get a win at a reigning state champ, I would say it's a huge opportunity for any program, right? And so that's why I really like this matchup and see how it plays out. Riverside, I really like this Riverside team. Saw in week 1, Lee Roussel, the head coach, Chris Lashney, defense coordinator, Corey Hardy, working with the receivers, really good coaching staff for a small school out there. And so then they have great players, like you said. Boogie was unbelievable when we saw him. He's the most experienced sophomore I've ever seen. He plays like a senior. And then they got a bunch of just tough football players. Like, man, they're linebackers. Some of them play both ways. They're just tough. Like, you can just feel that presence. And so I really like this Riverside team. We talk so highly about that Terrebonne team, who deservingly so. But Riverside, Division 4, I believe, right? Yes, right. Division 4 Riverside went to Terrebonne in week 1 and nearly beat them. They had the ball with a chance to beat them in the fourth quarter. So that's how good this Riverside team is.
Yeah, you bring up a great point, which is, and it's that river. Must be that River Bayou juice going. Look, those games are real, man. We used to play teams from the Bayou all the time when I was at St. Charles, and they had a little bit more energy to them. But I really think a lot about this Riverside football team. Jaden Obikwe is a guy who transferred in from East Jeff, running back, and we talk a lot about the receivers, which are all young, I might add, all sophomores and below. Boogie Johnson kind of leading the way there, and he's a very talented guy. But Obikwe, the experience, along with their really talented quarterback in Brock Bourgeois, who feels like he's been there starting for forever as well, 3-year guy, and they got a really solid offensive line. Aiden Bullock, who's 6'2", 270, was an all-state guy. Is actually committed.
He's a really good baseball player.
Southern.
Yep.
So clearly, a lot of times you want to say these big boys aren't really athletes. Man, look, you go play baseball on a scholarship.
You're an athlete if you play baseball. That's what I'm talking
about. Cass would know, right? But look, you go try hitting a fastball at 90 miles an hour. But I think there's you also have Ahmad Cage, defensive tackle, who's a big freak up front. I think this is a really athletic Riverside team. Vermilion Catholic kind of struggling to find their way. And while I like Riverside in this matchup, there's a huge opportunity for Vermilion Catholic. If they can pull off this win at home, you kind of have the crowd in your favor. This is going to be a turning point for your season. And again, if they want to start moving things in the right direction, getting a big win is crucial to that. And this is a team that's not accustomed to go starting the season 1-3. They went undefeated last year with a win over state champion Catholic New Iberia. They were the only team to beat Lance. That team that we watched last year, they were the only team to beat that Catholic New Iberia team. So for me, I think this is a crucial point in their season.
Yeah, it is. And we talked about going on the road, and Vermilion Catholic's not an easy place to play either. It's not easy to get to out there. It's in Abbeville, and that being Division IV small school, like it is a very cool atmosphere, and what a great opportunity they have this week with the Riverside Rebels coming into town. A little closer to home here, over here to us, we've got Jules Sumner going to Franklinton. Franklinton's 3-1. Jules Sumner is undefeated. This is kind of a little bit of a rivalry up there. Jules Sumner is a team that won 10 games last year. They're off to a 4-0 start this year. Their defense has only given up 9 points a game. Franklinton made their trip to the Dome a year ago under Coach Salt. This year they go to Covington in week 2, and that's their lone loss. They've already beaten Amite, Pine, Fontainebleau. This game, I feel like it's big for both teams, but this could be one that Sumner, if they can win, can really kind of put them on the map. I feel like not a lot of people have even know about Jules Sumner. They kind of fly under the radar, but this is a huge opportunity for Sumner.
I can't remember exactly what week it was, but Jules Sumner beat Kentwood either week 1 or week 2. Yep. And I texted y'all like, hey, Sumner beat Kentwood. That seems like a pretty big win, And then sure enough, they rattled off a couple more wins. Now they're sitting at 4-0 with a great opportunity, like you said, to go on the road to Franklinton. Coach Salt, I'm sure we'll get him on the show at some point. He's got to bless us, right? And so, but yeah, Coach Salt, he brings back Jacob Crane, who's a really good quarterback for him last year. He talked very highly about on our show. And so, yeah, I was the other game that I was surprised by early in the season was when Franklinton lost to Covington, just because I know Franklinton brought back a lot of talent from their Dome team last year. And so, yeah, you're right. I think this is a huge opportunity for both teams to kind of, if you Franklinton prove that, it feels like kind of a must win for Franklinton if they're going to make like another Dome run. I don't think this is a game that you can lose at home and really be a contender. And yeah, on the flip side, Jules Sumner, this is their opportunity to say we are for real. I think there's probably a lot of doubters out there. Kentwood's a good win, but of course you look at it as Kentwood's a smaller school, so they got the win versus a smaller school. But so yeah, I feel like this is a kind of a who's real in this matchup.
Well, in the Franklinton loss to Covington was even more perplexing because Covington goes out and loses to North Shore last week.
Right.
So
yeah,
that's
exactly.
That's North Shore. I think North Shore is getting slept on, guys. They were within 7 points of Jesuit. Of course, they lost to Curtis because it's Curtis. But I think look, I think maybe people have kind of been overlooking North Shore. I'm going to be very frank. I haven't seen enough or dug in enough to know this, but I know scores that stand out, and the North Shore scores every week have been consistently standing out. And I'm like, maybe I need to be paying more attention to these guys because something's been going on there.
Yeah. And you're right, Coach Bobby Sanders. He's in at least year 5 now. So I mean,
six, maybe 6.
Yeah, he's been at it long enough to build a really good program. He's been all over the place. So great football coach out there and great facilities too. So yeah, I mean, maybe this North Shore team is better than what we think.
But on this Jules Sumner team, I think again when you talk about a big opportunity, they're only giving up 9.75 points a game defensively. So this is a good test for them with a really high-powered offense in Franklinton. They got 2 really impressive wide receivers in Jaden Burkhalter and Demekus McLean, along with a very talented quarterback, a really talented running back as well, and Ricardo Burris for Franklinton, who ran for $160 last week. I really like Jeremiah Brooks at running back for this Jules Sumner football team. And then you also have Jamon Dyson, who is a 2-way player, was the district MVP on offense last year. But I think there's a good opportunity for Jules Sumner. Franklinton comes in expecting it, kind of like what we were talking about with that Riverside Terrebonne matchup. Like you win the game is like what you should have won. However, I think this is going to be a big win for either team regardless. It's going to earn either team a lot of power points.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that's something else that we can start to maybe pay a little bit more attention to as we get deeper in the season. Not far from Franklinton, just down the road a little bit in Tangipahoa Parish, U High goes to St. Paul's. This U High team, they're 2-2, but the schedule that they've played has been absolutely brutal. St. Paul's coming off of a big win over John F. Kennedy last week, in which Cody Corrales rushed for 200 yards. He's a really good running back for them. It's the St. Paul's team that wants to play physical. They want to run the football at you. U High, they come in, they score 36 points a game. They're only giving up 16. I feel like St. Paul's, if they're trying to reach that next level, this is a game for them that they don't have to win it, but if they want to announce themselves as being, for real and being a contender this year, I feel like this is a game that they've got to find a way to win.
Yeah, both of these teams have played a heck of a preseason schedule. I mean, even not preseason, pre-district schedule. I mean, St. Paul is going all the way back to the scrimmages and jamborees, and so neither team's avoiding anybody, right? And but last week St. Paul's had a good physical win over John F. Kennedy, who's got athletes everywhere. So it almost feels like John F. Kennedy was probably the perfect opponent to kind of prepare St. Paul's for this one. And yeah, I mean, both teams have been solid, but it's a great opportunity for both of them to just continue to prove that they're going to be some serious contenders as they get into the playoffs.
Yeah, look, U High has so many guys all over the field. Lawson Dixon is a guy who has offers at receiver. Aaron Moore is a Nichols commit at cornerback. You know that U High is going to come in talented. That's on top of having Lamar Brown. Mason Smith is a big defensive lineman who's kind of emerged lately. I'm really interested to see. I'm going to kind of go in a different direction here. A guy who I've heard a lot about is Andrew, and I'm sorry, buddy, I'm going to butcher your name. Andrew Schofstall. Andrew Schofstall, who's a guy, he's a sophomore, 6'4", 320. He's a guy who I've been hearing a lot about. I've been watching some tape on him. He's a real physical football player, real fun to watch. I'm interested to see how he holds up against this really solid rush of U High to allow those playmakers to get those opportunities. Another guy as well, Brendan Villa, who is a wide receiver who really had to make a comeback after getting a serious surgery just like a few years ago. And I'm really interested to see how this offensive line can try to hold up against this defensive front to try to get the ball to your playmakers on the perimeter.
Also in Baton Rouge, we've got LCA coming off a game in which they went to Shaw, turned the ball over 7 times. Braylon Walker throws 6 interceptions, just a complete anomaly. They're going to travel to the defending Division I non-select state champ Central. What can this LCA offense get going and do against a Central defense that has Division I athletes and football players all over the field, led by Jamichael Garrett at linebacker? That's going to be the matchup to watch for. And also, is LCA going to come out and try to press on offense and try to do too much to overcome what happened last week? Like, where they're going to be when they go to travel to Central. So this is a fun one to watch. Also, not to mention, how about the schedule that LCA's played? Like, this is, they're going on the road to Shaw. They go on the road to Central. They've got Karen Crow, Rummel. This is unbelievable.
That's exactly what I was going to say. And, there's another one. I've said this about a couple other opponents too, but like this LCA team, if they do, if they come out on the wrong end of this one, you look at an LCA team that probably won't be like one of the top ranked teams when the power rankings come out, and somebody's going to be unlucky, And so, But anyway, LCA. I feel like that LCA team probably didn't come ready to play. Probably was overconfident last week. I'm sure that's what they're were being told all this week. So I'm willing to bet that they are going to come out super prepared for the Central team. Central's got a great team, great defense. Like you said, Jermichael Garrett going to Ole Miss. And so it's going to be a tough task. I mean, you come off a tough couple weeks, and who you got next? Central 4-0. So heck of a schedule. I wonder about how's LCA holding up, injury-wise. We play a tough schedule like that. They had full strength. But either way, I feel like you're going to see a great game plan and a great effort from LCA, especially with Braylon Walker. As the odds say, he's going to have a great night.
Yeah, I'm interested to see how Braden Allen comes out. Recently just decommitted from Tulane, really kind of has targeted on Oklahoma and Colorado coming down the stretch. But that's a big announcement to make the week after a loss going into Central. But look, this LCA team has a lot of offensive weapons. We also mentioned Bellard in the backfield, who's been phenomenal, along with the incredible quarterback play we've seen. I think it's safe to say that's probably the worst performance we'll see from LCA offensively all year. But you're trying to rebound against a really solid defense, like we talked about. There's a defense in Central that's not yielding much, playing some top-notch competition. You also have Scott Smith, Houston commit, who's also playing on the edge, along with Jermichael Garrett. There's a lot of talent on this defense, but I do think that's going to be the matchup of the game, is watching this explosive LCA offense and seeing, can they overcome themselves and kind of move past last week, because the mental game is so much a part of whether you get a win or a loss. And overcoming last week is going to be key in this game. Yeah,
and what's kind of stands out to me too, as talented as the Central defense is, they're giving up 29 points a game. So that's 24 points a game. So that's still, maybe you like to see that number be a little bit lower, but can LCA find what they had the first 3 weeks of the season? And you make a long trip to the West Bank, now you got to go make another long trip to Central. So interested to see how that goes for them. Up in North Louisiana, we've got Captain Shreve and Airline, two teams who were 3-1. Captain Shreve has already played 3 district games. This is such a big district. They've started so early in the football season. They're undefeated in district. Airline is 1-1. The score last year when these two teams played was 69-68. I'm not a betting guy, but I would bet that it was probably pretty close to that again this year. This Airline offense is just unbelievable with Chance Williams and Kenny Darby. And this Captain Shreve team has not given up less than 34 points in a game. So there's points to be had in this game.
Yeah, I had to put this one on the list just because I felt like the over-under in this game would have to be like 125 points.
Take the over.
And
I don't care what it is.
Still probably take the over. So it's just the opposite of what we're used to seeing down here, the way the Catholic League plays, And so, but yeah, I mean, there's going to be points for days. And, what blows me away, it's not just all through the air. I mean, we're looking at a Captain Shreve team that has 4 dudes over 300 pounds, as well as a Wake Forest running back that ran for 2,200 yards and 32 touchdowns last year, and he's back. So they're doing it. It feels like this Captain Shreve team's doing it through the air and on the ground. And on the other side, Airline's got, I believe, by Jason's measures, the best receiver in the state in Kenny Darby, right?
He's one of them. I still think Miguel Whitley's in that conversation. Junior, it's really hard when you're talking cross class. I think Miguel Whitley and Darby are definitely in that top 3-4 conversation. I'm really a big fan of both of these guys. But I'm going to tell you, ironically, talking about another team which has one of my favorite athletes in the entire state, and I apologize if I put your name, Jamercia Plater. I watched this guy's tape over the summer. Man, try tackling him in a telephone booth and you'll still miss 3 times. He is super electric. He's like a bottle of lightning. He spins, he jukes, he'll run past you. He can run circles around you on the way to the end zone. He's really fun to watch. And, of course, the other side of the ball, Airline, they love to pass the ball. They love to play numbers game. They were even mixing Darby up in the backfield last week, kind of allowing him to run the football some. Terrence Hayes is a guy who stepped up at wide receiver for them. Expect fireworks early and often. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch. And don't forget about my guy, Cardarian Devers, wide receiver for Captain Shreve. Really another great athlete, can go up and make some grabs. When you talk about offensive display, and scouts are going to be at this game looking at either team and like around 7, 8 to 10 guys, this is the game to go see if you're looking for offense.
I don't know. You think this game ends before midnight?
I mean, it depends on if they change the overtime rules, right? If just a little plug, if you move the ball back to the 30-yard line, maybe we wouldn't have so many overtimes. Just a thought.
That's also true. I watched an overtime game last week, and you got to go 10 yards.
You've gotten accustomed to that, huh, Kaz? I feel like you've seen a few of those this year.
We have. Hopefully we don't have many left. We can just kind of win it going away. But, I agree with you. The putting the ball at the 10-yard line in overtime is – I don't like it. I don't know. But if you want to put in a shameless plug, I'm agree with you because I'm not a fan. Back it up. I would even like to see it get backed up to just put it at the 20. Like, make you get a first down. Like, you have to get a first down before you score. You need to do something. All right. That's enough of the rules of the game with us. We could be here all night. But that's y'all got any other games y'all want to touch on? Anything else?
I mean, only other one I'm interested in really is Slidell Hammond. You know, Slidell. They had one bad loss to Easton, but other than that, they've been impressive. They look like they got some really good weapons on offense. They got blown out by Hammond last year. Hammond's 3-1 again this year, and so this feels like a put up a shut up type game for Slidell.
Yeah, I'll go. I'll touch a few real quick. But the one I was trying to find is one that we were talking about before the air. I really am interested in the Sacred Heart Westminster Christian game. 2 undefeated teams. Maybe not a game that a ton of people are looking at, but what really is fascinating is Sacred Heart comes into this game after a shutout against Opelousas Christian, which is a team that has a USC commit at receiver, Tenzo. I'm blanking on his first name, but a really high-powered offense. They shut them out. They give up 80-something yards, but keep them out the end zone. Stephen George and his Opelousas of this Westminster Christian offense are really do a solid job throwing the football. He has weapons out there. I think that one is going to be interesting to see. And also another one is this Minden Loyola Prep game. I've been talking a lot about Loyola Prep, and this is going to be their biggest test of the year. They have Restovich at quarterback, who's a really good playmaker. Lucas Owens at Minden is he's a really solid running back for Minden. We'll see those contrasts and styles of play, but Alex Mitchell as well for Loyola Prep, guys. He is a turnover machine. He had 3 picks in the game a week ago. He forces turnovers a ton. I'm really interested in that matchup as well.
One more I'd like to hit on in Tangipahoa Parish is A-Meet goes to Kentwood to go play under the tank. Both of these teams come in at 2-2. I don't know if this is a vintage, maybe even for either program. I don't think this is a vintage A-Meet team or even a vintage Kentwood team, but this is a big rivalry. They're going like that. Speaking of good atmospheres, this is going to be one of them. Both teams lost their first 2 games of the season. They're coming to this one on 2-game win streak. So who can kind of keep it going and kind of get their season back on track? And the loser that's really going to be facing an uphill battle for 2 proud and talented programs. But that's going to be a fun one out in Kentwood. If y'all haven't seen the game under the tank, you need to go check it out. It's there's a guy like an adult that dresses up in a kangaroo, and that's their mess. It's awesome. It's great. It is great. All right. Well, that was Coach Valdez got us off to a great start. That was a heck of a show. right there. But if you're still watching, we appreciate it. We're here every Sunday and Tuesday night live. You could also catch us on VSN Live or on demand. Don't forget to follow us on our Twitter or X account at Talking Ball LA, and then also on our YouTube channel, Talking Ball. Y'all, we will see y'all again on Sunday night to recap all of the happenings of a jam-packed and exciting weekend of Louisiana high school football. For Lance and Jason, I am Cass, and y'all have a good night.